This is Luann. I'm a trainer here at the Big Hairy Dog. Today's webinar is concerning version 9 physical inventory. I have a full house. I've got 12 people signed in so far. There might be a few stragglers coming in. So for those of you who are already in the webinar, welcome. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted out on our YouTube site. You will get an email with the location at the end of the broadcast. It should be up on the website by tomorrow. So if you joined us late, you can still review the whole webinar. Because we have a full house, it might not be easy for me to unmute you all. So there is a chat available and a question button. So if you need to ask a question, grab the little question bar, and I will try to pay attention and make sure that the questions are being answered. And in general, what we do with this is just make sure we're reviewing the steps, the general steps to taking a successful physical inventory in Retail Pro 9. So if that's what you're here for, we'll get started doing that and hopefully get you on your way with the best information on your review. All right, so I always give this speech at the beginning of physical inventory webinars. The best thing you can do to have a successful physical inventory is to prepare, right? So in the case of an all-store physical, right, what that means, if you're multi-store, make sure that anything that is transferred between stores or anything that you've vouchered into Retail Pro is actually in the location that Retail Pro considers it to be on hand. It may sound like a simple thing, but so many people are, defeated in their attempt to count everything because they have merchandise in transit between locations, or they actually voucher it in a warehouse for the store, but it's not physically delivered to the store, or things may be sitting on the dock at the store and they're counted when they have not been received. So make sure you're observing those cutoffs. Make sure that if you're transferring merchandise, the merchandise has had time to get to the location and get checked in where you're going to count it. Make sure that if you're vouchering things in, if you haven't had time to voucher it into Retail Pro, put a big sign on it, says after inventory, don't count it. And goes without saying, selling things, you want to make sure that you're trying to count your items when they're not available for sale, i.e. your store should be closed either before hours or after hours is the best practice. Now, that's not always feasible. We know some of you with smaller locations do have to count while your store is open for sale. There are ways to control that, but best practice is you should be closed. Nothing should be moving. All right, so officially, we talk about backing up, right? If you are in Retail Pro 9, backing up happens automatically in the middle of the night, and that file, right, contains all the data in the data file. Usually that's going to be all that's actually necessary. Make sure that your backup ran last night, so in case something really bad happens, you can roll back to the backup. Okay. Some people do an on-hand report. I'm going to bring their Retail Pro reports up here. So the on-hand report, by item or by DCS, whatever your accounting people require. This is not something that is actually a strict requirement for Retail Pro to do the physical, but a lot of people's accounting departments want a before on-hand report and an after on-hand report so they can look at the actual differences and give it to an auditor if necessary. So if you are required to do a before and after on-hand report, then make sure you're running your on-hand report on the day of the physical in the store if that's where you're doing the physical. All right, so I'm going to minimize reports back down here, and then we're going to talk about the actual steps that you go through to prepare your floor for a physical. You want to make sure that everything's got a tag on it. Seems simple, but if you go to count that thing and it doesn't have a tag on it, then you've got a question mark. And what you want to do is eliminate as many question marks as possible. I'm going to open up this document right here, okay, where, not that document, this document. And this is part of a physical inventory checklist / outline that we here at the Big Hairy Dog publish for our clients. If you rent scanners from us, you'll get one of these in the box with the scanner. If you don't rent scanners from us and you go through training, you know, one-on-one with the trainer, we can provide this document to you. All of them are set so that whatever form of collection you're using for the inventory, it's kind of tailored to use that form. This happens to be a Dolphin scanner, right? That's a batch scanner that you can either buy or own. We don't actually rent this scanner, but this is just an example of the document that we can pass out. And so the prep work, we always recommend that you split your counted area up into zones. That's what Retail Pro calls the sections in the physical. So you don't have to make a map that's as fancy as this, but make some kind of rough map outline. And we do recommend that you break it up into zones. I know some of you do not do that and count everything, you know, all in one big list. Okay, but if you're using zones, it makes it a little easier to control what areas have been counted, and also if there are errors, you can go back to that section and review the errors in a little more controlled fashion. All right, so plan your inventory out. Plan, make a map. Plan what's going to get counted first. If you're using scanners, then all you have to do is take the team that's working the scanner and say, you go do that orange counter, whatever there, that's up at the front, right? So this also includes a note here about multi-store customers. So if you have a multiple location place, there are a few things that are a little bit different, and you have a couple of choices. We'll cover that in a second. Okay, but you want to make sure that your polling is up to date. So with version 9, this is less of a problem than it was with older versions. Your polling takes place over the course of the day, and the main is almost always in sync with the store as far as what the on hand is. This is important because the adjustments that you're going to create by this physical actually affect your on hand at the main for your store if you are multi-store. Okay, so make sure your polling is up to date. If it's not up to date, then you're going to quick poll, or you're going to do whatever it takes in order to make sure that the polling has completed your sales, updating your sales to the main before you start the physical in the store. Okay, so you've prepared everything, you've made sure everything has tickets, you've drawn your zone map. There are a couple of things that you're going to check in Retail Pro itself, okay, before you get ready to actually do a count. If you are using, okay, any kind of scanner, whether you rent it from us or you own it, then you want to test and make sure that everything is in place so the download works before the day of the physical. So you don't want to show up at 6 in the morning and find out that your scanners aren't downloading. So check it a couple of days ahead of time. If you rent from us, we always get them to you at least a day ahead of time. We schedule a tech or a trainer to go over testing a download with you, so we know that on the day of the physical inventory that your scanner actually works. Now, I can't show you how to test a scanner because I don't have one here connected to my system, but this is a very important step that if you're using any kind of batch scanner, that you test that before you go. All right, so the next few things that you're going to be doing are in Retail Pro itself. All right, so the physical inventory module is located inside the inventory list view. Before we go to the inventory list view, there are two things that you need to check in preferences. All right, the first thing is in Workstation Preferences. So Options, Workstation Preferences, okay, and over here under Peripherals and Inventory Scanner. So if you are using an inventory scanner, whether it's rented from us or one that you own, one of these selections needs to be present, right? So most of people who are using version 9 are have their scanner set to this. So this applies to the Dolphin scanner that I showed you. It applies to almost all the scanners that we rent. It applies to any ones that you would have that are your own scanners, unless they're the old style, what we call PT. So this portable data terminal scanner, this is a really old school, I think I had a picture of it here, but it's we rent them if you've been around Retail Pro since version 8, so at least 10 years, let's say. You might have a portable data terminal, right? And this would be directly connected to a serial port, and you would know that. So the reason we point this out is we want you to test the scanners ahead of time, right? So if this setting is not right, we can get it set right before the day of your physical. All right, so that's the hardware setup, as it were, from Retail Pro standpoint. The other thing to check, okay, is in your system preferences, okay, under local preferences over here on the side, okay, and then merchandise, and then PI tool, okay, the options section right here, okay. You have choices whether or not you're using zones, which we always recommend, okay, or simple physical, right? There are two choices here, and almost 95% of the people who take physical inventory in version 9 use zones so they can control their and audit more easily. Most of the rest of these things are not of major consequence if you're taking a full inventory. So if you've taken inventory before in Retail Pro 9 on the systems that you're here, you just want to check use zones. Okay, and then if you're multi-store, you want to check this setting right here. Okay, so this is the explanation for what this checkbox does is a little vague in the system preferences. If this is checked, what that means is that you're going to count everything in your store, you're going to download all your counts into Retail Pro in the store, and then you're going to send that information up to the main location so that someone at the main is actually going to do the update. So that's what this checkbox means. So if you're multi-store and you want someone at the main to review the counts before you take the update, okay, then that needs to be checked. If it's unchecked, then you're going to be doing the update at the store. Hang on a second, I see I have a question. Okay, so the question is, if you use ALUs, would you change initialize inventory by? And that question is no. So this initialize inventory here, right? This is a setting that's used with a feature called Smart Scan, which there are a handful of scanners, old symbol scanners and old Janum scanners where you are going to tell Retail Pro, load my active items into the scanner so that I can make sure I'm scanning the right thing. And so if you're using Smart Scan, then there is a choice whether you're using the inventory by UPC or ALU. If you're not using Smart Scan, then that setting does not matter. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question. All right, and we will proceed. Okay, so, and the other things that you see on here, strip leading zeros, this only applies to the PT, the old school serial device, right? And this should not really be a factor for anybody who is using Retail Pro ALUs as Retail Pro 9 ALUs as opposed to version 8, because some of the version 8 systems had blank spaces in the front. That's not a possibility in version 9. So this really, we have not found this to be an issue in version 9 unless you're a recent convert from an older version of Retail Pro. Okay, so when you're in here, the things to check are this if you're multi-store, okay, and make sure that you have it set correctly. And if you have questions on how to set that, make sure you email into tech or get a clarification from somebody here to make sure that you're setting it the right way, okay, and whether you're using zones or not. Okay, so in here, that's really all you need to check. If you are using an inventory service, like Regis or Washington Inventory Services, they come in and count all your merchandise and give you a file, then this import map here is important, okay, because they're going to give you a file and we're going to import that file into Retail Pro. If you're doing this, having a service count, generally you're already talking to a tech here because the techs help our clients build what we call a verification file, a list of all the items that are possible in Retail Pro. We send that to the inventory service, either Washington or Regis generally, so that they know what the active barcodes are in the system. And if they scan something that's not on the list, then they have somebody in the store resolve it. So it cuts down on scanning errors, right? And so this map is built so that we can import the file that these inventory services create. So that's another thing. We don't really cover that all that much here, but just in case you're curious, that's what the import map is. All right, so the day of the physical comes, and like I said, it is generally advised that you are closed for business, so we don't have the chance that things are being sold before we count them, because the first step before you start counting and creating zones is we freeze or take a snapshot of the inventory. All right, so to do that, we go to the inventory tab here. We go to physical inventory here on the sides, okay, and we go to stores. All right, so in stores, if we had not started our physical yet, okay, this automatically comes up. And it's going to assume whatever your local store is. You get a chance to name it. Okay, so let's say this is webinar 2018. Okay, you can name that anything you want. I'm going to uncheck this because most of you don't have sublocations, so we're not going to cover that in this webinar. You can have a space here for notes, right? Most of what we cover in this webinar is a full physical inventory for everything in the store. So, you know, generally there's not a real need to make any notations here. And then you want to make sure that the store you're intending on counting is checked off. All right, so when I click the create button, what it does after we say okay to this filter you would use if you're just counting a single vendor or a list of DCSs or even a single ALU. Okay, but since we're covering everything in the store, you want to make sure this filter is totally clear and click OK. So it's going to go create a snapshot of everything we own in the San Francisco store. So if I go here to this PI inventory tab, this is my snapshot. So everything that I own, okay, in this San Francisco store, now I have a start quantity for. Okay, so every item in the system, right, is in this file, even if we have 0, so that when I do my counts, I can compare that to whatever my snapshot was at the time. All right, so you create your snapshot, okay, and then you go out and start counting, right? So there are various methods of capturing your counts. Some people do what we call a manual count. They might print inventory lists, right? And if you're doing that kind of thing, what we have available is a variety of worksheets, right? So you can print, that'll probably do, but it's not exactly what I had in mind. So let's just do this, and I'll let it run, and then I'll hit the cancel button. So we have a variety of count sheets, right, that you can print that have the descriptive information. They actually have a barcode on it. They have the actual quantity on hand in the store if you want. That's an option. But then you can take this around to the store, find this item, and or go around to a zone, take the sheet and mark on it how many you have of each individual item. This one doesn't actually have a count box. Let me get something that does. Sorry, I wasn't totally prepared to show you that for a second here. Let me just do this really, really quick because we have some better ones than that. Hang on one sec. Design, Doc Designs, PI, no, inventory. Okay, so 1 second here. Let me grab this. Doc Designs, inventory. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So now if I look at these, right, I've got a barcoded version of this, and I have a regular count sheet. And essentially what this would do is allow you to print out your inventory. You can filter to a certain department. You can filter to a certain vendor. You can hand it to a team, right? And then they're going to go out and check to see, you know, whether you have 10 of these things or not. You're supposed to have 855, right? So they can mark their counts on this, and then you're going to enter these into Retail Pro. So the other version I have of this is one that actually has a barcode printed on it. So this is very handy when you, if you're using it, because what we can do is you can record your counts here, right? And then you can come back to Retail Pro and sit in front of Retail Pro, scan this barcode, and then tell me how many. Scan this barcode and tell me how many. Okay, so if you're doing a manual count, we have some tools, right, that allow you to go out and count your inventory and then get those counts entered. So got a question here. Let me see, who was that? There we go. Questions. Okay. I guess that was an old question, right? So, so if you're counting, you can count by sheets. You can use one of the various inventory scanners, right? So I showed you this Dolphin scanner. Most of them look similar to this. We have rental scanners that are all USB cradle type. So the USB cradle plugs into the Retail Pro computer. This scanner comes out, you go around, you scan an item, you come back, you plug it into the cradle, okay, and you download it, what's in it, into a zone. All right, so you're going to go count, and depending on the type of input method, you're going to either dump your scanner or download or key enter your items into a zone, right? So physical inventory, zones. Okay, now that I have started a physical, right, I can go into that. So you can see here, I'm going to say new, okay, for a zone. I'm going to say what store I'm counting, and then I'm going to give my zone a name. Okay, you can have up to 20-something characters here, I think 22. Older versions were limited to 5, so it was limiting, but in here you can go up to 5. Okay, so question bar keeps coming up, but I'm not seeing any questions. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at the question that looks like I've got a new question, but I cannot see it. So if you're trying to ask a question, you might drop into the chat, right? And if you can see that and you're trying to ask a question, and I will try to answer it. Okay, check to see whose hands are raised. There we go. Okay, so downloading the style sheets. So there's a question here, how do we download the style sheets? So if you're talking about what I was just showing you, right? Let me cancel this. Okay, these are the things that I just showed you are inventory document designs. So if you're, if you've been trained with one of ours trainers, they may have given you these already. If you don't have them, you can email in or ask one of the techs, and we can email you this or just drop on your system and install them. Okay. Retail Pro comes with this inventory sheet, and this might be there if you're not, if you haven't taken our training, but it's, it's pretty ugly. It's, you can use it, but if you want the one with the barcodes on it or something like that, you can try to edit this one yourself, or just ask one of us, and we can give it to you, drop it in on your system. Okay, all right. Okie dokie. Okay, so I'm going to go back into physical inventory and zones, right? So you've got your counts. We're going to drop them into a zone. So you're going to say new. You're going to pick your store. You're going to tell me what the zone is that you want to put your stuff into. Okay, it's going to create a zone, right? So this is a blank zone, nothing in it yet. Okay, and so to get something in it, you're going to go into scan and add counts. Okay, and here you have a choice of how you're going to add the counts. So there's 3 tabs. Okay, import, this is importing a file using those maps I showed you a little while ago. So this we would use if you are having an inventory service count everything, and they're going to give you a file. I do have some clients where they will actually enter all their counts into an Excel spreadsheet, and then we'll import the totals into Retail Pro using a map. Okay, so 2 uses here to get your information in. Okay, manual is one way to get your information in. So if you were using the scan sheet where it had the barcodes on it, we'd go around the store, count everything on the sheets, and then come in here to the zone, do manual, right? Click quantity for current item right here, okay, and then enter items. Okay, so these are a couple of items that I have in the system. So I would be either key entering or scanning this off my sheet, right? And it would stop here in the second under quantity, and I could tell the system how many. And I press enter, and it cycles back up to the lookup, right? So I either key enter or scan a barcode in here, right? Press enter, okay, and then enter my quantity. So if you're using manual count sheets with or without a barcode, this is how you're entering your physical. Okay, so in this zone, I've entered a couple of lines. Okay, you don't see those lines, they're not permanent, even though you can see them down here. Okay, until you click the close button. Once you click the close button and you see them in the zone, now you know they're saved, quote unquote. Okay, if I back up now, I can see that I've got 22 units under 2 barcodes. So good scans, 2, okay, counts, 22 units in zone 1. All right, so that's how you do it with a manual. Okay, I'm going to create another new zone. Okay, this one is going to be, you got it, zone 2. Right, that creates a blank zone. Now, when you're creating zones, you need to be careful to actually highlight the zone that you want to dump your counts into, whether you're entering them manually or you're downloading a scanner, right? If you go like, if you highlight this one and you go to scan and there's something already there, that's probably wrong, you probably picked the wrong zone to enter or dump your counts in, with some exceptions. Okay, so make sure you're highlighted on the zone you want to deal with. Go to Scanned. Okay, go to Add Counts. Okay, and in this case, right, if I'm adding or counts downloading from a scanner, no matter what kind of scanner it is, you're going to go to Portable Device. Okay, and then you're going to do something on the device to download the scanner, right? So in some cases, you push a button on the cradle. In some cases, you push a couple of F keys on the scanner. In other cases, it's, there's a wireless scanner where you can do a wireless transfer. But this step is getting Retail Pro ready to accept the count. Okay, and then you do something on the scanner to download the count. I don't have anything to download here, so this is a pretty boring part of the webinar. But if I had something to download, it would show, downloaded X number. If there were any errors in my scans, i.e., there was an item that I scanned that was unknown to Retail Pro, you'll get a little message to that effect on the screen here, and you're going to click OK and close. Okay, and then you're going to go back here to this error display. Okay, now I can't purposefully create errors in here without having a file with bad scans in it. Okay, but what I have down here is a little display of what that error thing looks like typically. So I'm going to fast forward this to that. Okay. All right. So when we scan something, okay, and it is not found, okay, you're going to see bad scans come up here on your zone list. Okay, you're going to go to the errors button, like it says here. Okay, and the display looks something like this. Hopefully you can see that. Let me see if I can blow that up a little bit here. Oops. Okay. All right, so down where the error is, almost there. Okay, so this is what the error display looks like, right? So the items that are in green, these are items that were found, okay, and right next to it is this thing that's highlighted or displayed in yellow. Okay, so on the yellow line, all you're going to see is what barcode did we scan. So in this case, 763592 is what we scanned, and that was not recognized by Retail Pro. So we get blanks. We know we scanned it in the second position. In this case, this should have a scan quantity of something, but it doesn't for some odd reason. Okay, but we know it was in between this flower plate and this tufted vinyl storage bench when we scanned it, excuse me. So now we can go back out to the zone, right? So if you scan the whole store and then you get errors, it's going to be kind of hard to find this thing in the whole store. You're going to have to find this flower plate in, somewhere in your backstock or somewhere out on the floor. Whereas if you've just scanned a couple hundred items on a shelf for a zone, you go right back to that shelf and you find the flower plate and the vinyl tufted storage bench, and in between there is something with a tag on it that says 763592. Okay, so if you have errors, okay, we also have a couple of sheets that help you find the errors. Okay, so let me look and see if the sheets are, yeah. Okay, so if you don't have this document, again, let us know and we can provide it to you. There are these ones that just start with PI. These are the ones that come with Retail Pro. We have our own version. Sorry, I need to be back here, zones. Nope, and I have the wrong version here too. I apologize. Let's see. barcode, local disk R, so doc designs, PI zone, here, doc designs, PI zone. Okay, so we want this one, I believe. Just copy them both over here. Okay, so print, I believe this is the one that we want. Yeah, this is the one that we want. Okay, so this will list all the items that you counted in the zone. Okay, and if you scanned something that was not found, that's going to appear in its own section at the top of this. Like I said, I can't recreate that without downloading a file with a bad scan in it that's not recognized. But then you can take this document back out to the zone, right, and identify the item. Okay, so there would be a line on it that has this 763592 item on it, and you counted X number of them. Go find those so that we can identify them and put them in the counts. All right, so the method of adding them to the counts can vary depending on how many you have and how much time you have. What we usually recommend, okay, is that you can print and delete the scanning errors, right, as you go, okay, but pull the item out of the zone and put it in a separate place for resolution later, right? So to get rid of the error display, which you have to do before you can merge the files, there's a resolve button, okay, at the top of the screen on the error list, right? So this was grayed out because I don't have anything to resolve. Okay, but if you have scanning errors, you're using the any kind of back scanner, you might have scanning errors. Go identify what the item is. Usually pull it out, identify it, maybe put it back in a zone that has not been counted yet, or set it aside so you can put all the errors in at one time, either in a scanner or as manual. Okay, so two ways of identifying or dealing with errors, right? You can address them right now, but you do have to address them, or you can pull them all aside and put them in a zone by themselves. Okay, so again, if you're renting scanners or you are using your own scanners and you want a little bit of a brush up on dealing with scanning errors, when you get ready to test the scanner, we can. Someone is asking about how to do an inventory for just one vendor or department. I can show you that in a second. We should have enough time. That's a very simple little difference in what we're doing here. Okay, so the zones, right? You're going to download all your zones. You're going to, if you have errors, you're going to go identify those errors. You're going to resolve the errors, and all resolving errors does is get rid of the error list, right? You still have to tell the system what those unidentified items are. Okay, so no matter what you're counting or how you're counting, there's usually a zone of things that you need to fix. Okay, you can call it errors, you can call it manual, you can call it anything you want. Okay, what I'd like to do here is merge these two little counts that I have, and then we go look at discrepancies, and then I'm going to come back and add a zone to show you how you deal with some of your discrepancies. All right, so merging zones, you can do it as you go, right? So you can take this zone 1, you can merge it by itself. So if I highlight that and I use merge zone here on the side, okay, and I click yes, that zone's merged. So it gets a checkbox right here. You're not manually checking off the merge button. You're using the merge button on the side. Okay, so you can all your zones done, you can mark everything that's not previously merged by doing the select all. So some people merge the zone when they know they're done with it. Some people merge all the zones at the end. Okay, that's your personal preference. Okay, you can always unmerge a zone. So if you merge it by accident, you can always unmerge it and make changes to it if you want. So select all. Okay, puts a, what are you doing here? Okay, I only had one zone here, so I just got to mark it by itself. All right. So you set the mark here in all zones that haven't been merged. You cannot merge them if there's any bad scans, and it will yell at you if you try. Okay. So you can merge marked here. That's going to merge everything that's marked, put a mark in the column. Once you've merged all your zones, now you're ready to look at your discrepancies. You don't want to do it here. You want to go back to the Stores tab. Okay, so if I go to Physical Inventory and Stores, okay, this is everything that I've counted. You know, I'm going to have lots of discrepancies because I didn't bother to count everything. Okay, but in the Stores tab, if I go to Discrepancy, okay, here's my display, shows me what Retail Pro thought I started with and what I counted. Okay, so I'm just going to sort this so I can see the ones that I did count, right, to use those as an example. Right, so in version 9, right, any of these fields with a dot on them are sortable. So when we tell people to start looking at your discrepancies, you can sort by discrepancies. So you can sort on this column and look at the worst stuff first. Okay, in my case, I just want to look at the stuff that I counted, so I'm sorting this way. You have filters over here, so you can identify, you know, you can filter down to one particular item or one particular department or anything like that. If you're looking for something or you want to look at just your jewelry, anything that's got high dollar value, use your filter to investigate those discrepancies. And again here, see if third time's a charm. Here I do not have my Bhd scanned and discrepancy by department. This will work. So we also have forms that break your discrepancies out by type, right? So, or by this one happens to be a department. We have a vendor version, we have a DCS version, and just a straight item version by ALU. This is showing you what you scanned, what you started with, and what your differences are. So you can use this to go out on the floor and try to investigate things. Some people give this to their accountants so they can see this does have a difference in cost on it. Okay, so they, you know, at the bottom there's probably a total, I think, yeah. And this has also got difference in retail. So if this is what the accountant wants, then you can print this, and you could print this before or after the physical is updated. Okay, you have that choice. Okay, so you review your discrepancies. If you need to change something, in this case, it's like I only counted 12 of those, and I'm different 185. It's like, oh, I made a mistake. There's some in the back stock. I can go count the stuff that's in the back stock, and I can add it to the count. Okay, so what I need though is I need, okay, we'll do it the easy way, right? So if you need to change the counts, okay, you're not going to do it here. What you're going to do is you're going to go back to your zones, okay, and you're going to either unmerge the existing zone and change the count. Okay, that's appropriate in some cases, or more often you're going to create a new zone, okay, and call it adjustments or manual or something that says these are my additions and subtractions on a recount, right? You can call it recount, you can call it whatever you want. Okay. But what you would do in here is you would manually enter, go to scanned, go to add counts. Okay, so you're not going to necessarily go out and scan those items into a scanner. but you're going to go in here, okay, and enter what needs to change, right? You can actually enter minus quantity. So if you overcounted something and you want to subtract the quantity from them, then you can do that here. Scan quantity can be negative. Okay, just so you know, that's a question that we get a lot. So if you're altering counts and you need to take some away from the total, the scan quantity can be negative. You do have to manually alter the count. You can't enter -1 into one of the batch scanners, but you can change the quantity once it's in here. So most of the time this is for adjustments that exist you know, out after you've merged everything and figured out that you double counted something, or that you're counted 11 when it should have been 1. All right, so you go make your adjustments, right? You merge your adjustments, okay? And so I merged that, and so anything that I've counted, okay, is in the discrepancy list. Okay, I got a question, hang on a sec. Hand up. Okay, I saw Nate, I saw your hand flash pretty quick. Can you drop into the chat if you need to ask a question? Okay. All right, so I'll watch and see if questions or the chat opens up. All right, so we're getting towards the end here, right? We have merged everything. We've looked at our discrepancies. We've made our adjustments to the physical inventory. So the important thing now is to know that you may not have time to get all your discrepancy review done on the day of the inventory, and that's okay. So once you take the snapshot, once you download all your items or into the zones, okay, then basically anything that happens in Retail Pro, if you sell things, if you receive things, if you transfer things, all of that is after inventory, does not affect your start count. And the start count is what we're comparing to in Retail Pro. All right, so this display shows we started with 200. We only counted 9. So when we do our update, right, the system's automatically gonna make an adjustment of 190 units, okay, to this item, right? So if somebody came in after I did this start, and after you counted your 9, okay, and sold 100 of these units, okay, that does not affect what the discrepancy is. Okay, the discrepancy is comparing the start to what you count, and that's it. And this is the adjustment that's going to be made. So you cannot affect your start quantity here, right? So if this is wrong, okay, because you double received something or whatever prior to doing the start, okay, then you're going to want to rectify that outside of your physical. Okay, so this is going to take 191 units out. If you really only have 9, then you're done. That's going to do the adjustment, and your inventory is going to reflect what you actually counted, which is the goal of physical inventory. All right, so while we're looking at it, any place you see this merge zone list, okay, that's where you could unmerge a zone, right? So anything that you've merged, if you haven't updated, you unmerge this. My unmerge button is missing. Okay, so you can unmerge that zone, change of account. Okay, so let's say I've unmerged that zone. I'm going to go back to my zone list. Okay, I'm going to edit that zone by highlighting it, going in scanned, and so these items I'll add like, 200, so I'm going to change my counts here. Okay, so that I have less discrepancy. All right, so I went back to the zone, I remerge it. Okay, because my next step, okay, is to update. All right, so here's my new discrepancy. So here, I change those counts, so I have less of the discrepancy. You can see that that's the adjustment that it's going to make when I do the update. Okay, and so the last step after you're done making all those adjustments is to update the PI. Okay, so this update, I'm not going to go through all of it because I don't want to totally throw away my database here. A couple of things you need to know about the update, okay, is we're going to be allowed to give a reason for doing it. Okay, most of you have a reason called physical. It's going to automatically make adjustments and use that reason code. It's going, you get to tell it what story you're updating, and until you tell it what story, you can't even click on the update button. Okay, and then there's a couple of buttons here that are important. The default is all inventory. So what this means is that if you have a -1 on hand, okay, you can't count a -1, right? You have 0, right? We want that adjustment to be made to bring your current on hand to 0. Okay. Also, anything where like we have 30 in our start physical and we don't count anybody, or we don't count any, we want that update to take place. Okay. If this button is checked, that means we're only going to update places where we actually did a count. Okay. In some cases, this is appropriate. Okay. In most cases, it's not. Okay, so, got a question? Okay, so the question is, why did I have to unmerge to make the change? Okay, once a zone is merged, right? If I went to scanned here, okay, I would not be able to make this edit, right? I can't edit here. Well, did I merge that? Yeah, interesting. You're not supposed to be able to. I think we've just discovered a little problem. Hang on one sec. Let me see if that's actually in the discrepancy list now. Yeah. Oh, that's weird. You should not be able to do that, Giselle. I'm just saying. So you unmerge if you need to edit the zone. Okay, that just let me unmerge it right in the zone. That is either a bug or it's a new feature that I was unaware of, and I'll find out either way so that I can cover that on future webinars, because you should not be able to put anything in the zone once you've merged it. Okay, anyway, when you're ready to update, right, you pick store, make sure you pick the reason, okay, and all inventory 99% of the time, especially if you're taking a full store physical. There are some instances where you would only update those things that you counted. Okay, the question that somebody had posed, Giselle is postulating I was able to do that because I was sysadmin. I don't think so. I've never been able to edit the quantity in a merge, edit anything in a merged zone, but they have changed a few things in the ways zones are handled. So I wouldn't be surprised that they decided that might be something somebody would want to do. But what I'll do is find out for sure, and then we'll shoot you an email in particular, so that we know what the actual intent was there. Okay, so, and there was someone had asked a question about just counting a single vendor or a single DCS. Okay, it is possible for you to just count those items, download them into a zone, and then use the button update quantity only. That's not the recommended way to do it, but that is one way to do it. So I'll explain the difference as soon as I get through this specific update, right? So when I click the update button, that's it. it goes and does its update, make adjustments, okay, according to whatever discrepancies it had in the file. Okay, and so you close that. I'm going to show you an adjustment that was created by a previous PI, right? So in the merchandise adjustment section, I'm going to look under PI, so I don't have a gazillion of them here. So this one where it says the source was the physical inventory module. Okay. This is assumed, so this was done with a physical inventory update. The reason you get to fill in, okay, the date is assumed. Okay. And what is created here is an actual document with all the items that were a discrepancy in the physical inventory. Here's the what the store start was. Okay, here's what the adjustment was made, and that's what we ended up with at the end. In this case, we were adding a bunch of inventory, which is a little odd, but this was created by a physical. Okay, and the one thing that I want to make clear with these with the physical is if you accidentally updated before you're ready, if you accidentally updated it and picked the wrong thing here, right, when we go to update, if you had this button on and you meant to have this button on. So once we do the physical update, okay, all the files and all the data that had to do with that physical update go into an archive. All right, so if I go into the store's archive here, it's going to show me all my previous physical inventories. Oh, I don't have any. So if I were to update that one, it's going to be sitting here, and it can be reversed. Individual adjustments can be reversed. Now, we don't necessarily want you to do that on your own. Just know that if you've updated before you were ready and didn't have your settings right, there are alternatives, right? You don't have to you know, quit, run away, and hide. So inventory adjustments can be reversed. Entire inventory updates can be reversed, but we want to make sure that you're getting the right information when you're doing that. So please check with us if you think you've made a horrendous error when you did a physical update, so we make sure that you get it fixed in the most appropriate manner. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up a little bit, okay, and I'm going to actually deactivate this inventory here, right? So this was our all store inventory. If we updated this, there wouldn't be anything here. If we decide we're not going to update this, we just inactivate it. That's it. Okay, so those tests. So you can start a physical inventory to test your scanner, you can start a physical inventory, you know, to train people, and then you just inactivate it. And then when the real day comes, you create a new snapshot and go on with finishing the inventory. Right. So there was a question asked about what happens if you want to do a cycle count, okay, or count just part of your inventory. And the key to that is when you create the new physical, so I'm just going to call this a vendor, and we would, you know, you could do a specific vendor, a group of vendors, a group of DCSs. The key to this is this filter, right, that I kind of cleared all and went. So if you put something in this filter, then it creates a file just for the stuff you put in the filter. Now, this is not this is an inventory filter, so it doesn't have everything, but you could think about identifying everything with a certain attribute or a certain EBS value or a certain description one or something like that. So generally people will do this for an easily identifiable department, like in the kitchen store, right? Today I'm going to count my towels, right? My soft goods. I'll do that today, and then next week I'll count my gadget wall, right? And hopefully your gadget wall is all in one DCS, right? One way to do this is to create a start file that only has that DCS or that vendor in it, right? So let's say in this case, it's going to be shoes day, right? We're going to count all of the shoes. So I'm going to check off everything that is a women's shoe. We're not going to count ladies today. We're just going to count men's. All right, and so if I check off that DCS, you can do the same thing with vendor. Today is my Patagonia day, so I'm going to count everything in Patagonia. So whatever you select in here, that's the only stuff that gets in the snapshot, right? So if I went and looked here in my PI inventory, this is my snapshot, all I'm going to see is shoes, right? So I'm sorting by DCS, all I see is shoes, all right? So I can go count all my shoes, men's shoes, right? I can either enter the counts from the count sheets, right? I can go scan everything and dump it all in. If I happen to count a women's shoe instead of a men's shoe, it won't accept in my in zone. It'll consider an error because it wasn't part of the snapshot. So cycle counting in version 9, okay, is all keyed on the filter up front, okay, and so I could go count all my shoes, okay, dump them all in here, okay, and then see if I have any minuses on hand here. I don't in men's shoes, but if I had minus on hand because I had sold an 11 when it was supposed to be a 10.5, right, it will rectify, you know, all that when I do my update, right? So cycle counting is something that is you know, that a lot of people do. You can use any of the other techniques for gathering the counts, manual count sheets, scanning everything. If what you scan is not a men's shoe, then it's going to be an error in this physical inventory. Okay, so it had to be filtered on the list in order to start, and otherwise everything else is exactly the same. You can go through zones, enter them in, and then do an update. And if there's any discrepancies, it's going to change or make an adjustment to change the on hand. All right, so I'm going to go back to my outline, see if I missed anything, right? Not really. Some people do, you know, immediately after their update, they will do an on-hand report, and especially if they had to do a before and after, they want to do the same report in order to give that to accounting or whatever. In the case where you need to report your adjustments only, right, to accountants, the discrepancy printout, okay, is the smartest thing to do, right? Again, that's here, okay, and it should say Bhd on the front. You want to use one of ours. Right. So this is showing, you know, everything that's different. Okay, only the stuff that's different, and then the other thing that you can provide to your accounting people, okay, is a report, right? So I'm in the, just let me show you where I'm at here. Retail Pro 9 reports, minimize, minimize, minimize. So this icon right here, right, is the Retail Pro 9 report viewer. There are some reports that come with Retail Pro that will report adjustments, right? The quantity changes here will report adjustments that were created by the physical. If you need something more sophisticated than this, let me just run this real quick and you can see what it looks like. Right, so this is just the differences. Most accountants aren't happy with that. They want to know how much dollars they lost. Okay, so if you need something like that, this cost change, that's not going to do it. Cost adjustment. So we've created some reports here. You see all these ones say in the custom area, Bhd adjustment, you know, ranked, divided by vendors, all different ways to split it up. Okay. So somebody had raised her hand. Okay. I didn't see your question, and so if you want to hop into the question pane or the chat room, try to watch for you. So these, you know, basically we designed these to give the merchant some information about what their worst vendors or departments were, or worst items. But you know, if you just need something to give to accounting, this PI with the DCS by department is probably the smartest thing to give to an accountant. And these are Bhd Custom Reports. So if you do not have these on your system, again, make a phone call or send an email into tech service, and we'll make sure you get these. These can be run after the fact. You don't have to have these put in before your physical, but before you need your accountant, if that's what you want. I think I have some stuff in that date range, so we'll just look at it and see. All right, while that's running. No, well, I guess that's not going to run on this system. Sorry about that. Let's see, do I have one of these? I might have one of these already printed. Let me just see if any of these are going to run here. Not running this on my computer, so get everything all checked out. Let's see if this is going to run. Let's say no and see if I get something. Nope. Okay. So those aren't going to run on here. Sorry, I didn't check that out ahead of time. So Vhd Adjustment Reports show the physical both at quantity and cost for those accounting people who care. Okay. And that's generally what they care about. Okay. So hang on here. Ann, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. My question, because we went into this a whole lot, when you're making your adjustments, because a lot of times it's just by one, are you adjusting to the quantity that you wanted to say? Are you adding and subtracting so that it adjusts to the quantity? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
so you get what I'm saying then? Yes. What happens, right, is in this case, right, we're looking at I made one for shoes and I don't have any counts, right? So I've got these huge discrepancies, right? So when you do the update, it's going to make an adjustment for minus 195 units.
Oh,
no matter what you own, this discrepancy is what matters, right? Okay. So if you know, you don't update this for a month, still going to take 199 away from whatever your current on hand is.
Okay.
Okay. Is that clear?
So you make the adjustments over in the discrepancy, not in any.
Well,
so what if you're not doing?
So if I update this,
oh, okay.
If I update this physical, right, it's going to make an adjustment. Okay, so that my on hand is going to go to 0. Okay, because I have 199.
Say on that top one, I actually had 193. So I changed that the discrepancy quantity to 193, or do I move this?
Okay, no, you can't actually change this. Okay.
Okay.
The only place you can have an effect, right, is by putting something in the scan quantity. Right, and so the scan quantity is accumulated through all the counts you do in the zones, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So if I were to take, you know, this item and accumulate, you know, 193, I'm going to see if this works on this version, right? So, and I'd say, let's say I have 188 here, and I have 195 here, right? So these counts right here, these are accumulated by putting them in a zone.
Okay.
Right, so you put them in a zone, right, or you scan them, you merge them, okay, and then this scan quantity is the total a number that you counted, in the store, right, and so this is the adjustment that it's going to make.
Okay.
Okay, so you don't change this. This is what it's going to do. Okay.
Okay, but
so
say we found 2 of that top item later. Okay, say we're down someplace else, and I found those 2 because I think we did this wrong and we adjusted it all backwards.
Before or after you update the physical?
I think that was, she must have done it after she updated, and so everything started out the next year the wrong way.
Okay.
The adjustment went the wrong way.
Yeah. Okay. So if we accepted and updated this physical, it's going to make an adjustment, right? Subtracting 12.
Okay.
Right? And if we find that 12 after we do the update, then we're going to adjust them back in. Right?
Okay, by plussing 12.
Okay. We're going to add them to the inventory because we told the system they were missing at the physical. And if they weren't really missing, then we need to add them back, right?
Okay.
Okay. So you're going to, if this has been updated, okay, and it's all done, and it had taken those 12 out by doing an adjustment, and you found those 12, should have counted them. Don't know why we didn't, but they're actually here. So you're going to go to make an adjustment here. Okay, you're going to say new quantity adjustment. You're going to tell me what the item is, right? And you're going to add 12 in this column right here.
Okay. Just like you normally would for any time you're adjusting an inventory.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And you're going to do that only if you find it after you've updated.
Only after you've updated. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Got it.
So whatever is going on, whatever the discrepancies are in here, in your actual physical, right, this is going to create those adjustments by themselves, right? So if you find these 12 before you update, then you add the 12 here, right?
Okay. Got it. Yep. Okay. Yep.
So that's odd.
I think one year we did it wrong and everything was off the following year by 1. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at the report in front of me. So yeah. Okay, got it.
Okay. I'm going to mute you again. Okay. That's pretty much, the end of the thing. Hopefully I answered the question for the person that had the cycle count question mark. That is something that if you haven't done them before in version 9, you might want to get just a little bit of time with the trainer to make sure that you're doing it right and that you're not causing yourself undue aggravation or risking zeroing out your whole inventory or whatever. So unless there are further questions, we're going to call it a day for today. This is being recorded. You will get a notification back to your email when it's posted, so that you can review it again if you want. There are other version 9 inventory webinars on the YouTube as well. We record them all, and I think we put them all up there. So look for the one timestamp the date if that's the one you really want to review. If you want to review any of the others, please feel free. It's free. Good luck with your physical if you've got one coming up. Okay, and if you're still have question marks after this, send an email into tech or service. If they think it's something that you need to deal with the trainer, we can set up a little bit of time to do that. If you need rental scanners, call in and talk to the rental scanner people in sales, right? With that, unless anybody's got a question, we'll call it a day. Thanks for your attention on the version 9 physical inventory webinar. See you soon.